Okay, I know we've got a couple of seconds before it really is 9 o'clock here, but let's start with a prayer from Enoch, and then we'll go from there.
Dear Father in heaven, thank thee for this day. Thank thee that we have technology and that we are able to meet together and discuss and learn and edify each other. Thank thee for the restored gospel and the light and hope that it brings into our lives. Thank thee for this home, our homes and the protection they give us. Please bless that we may be ready to hear what thou would have us say, hear what thou would have us hear, and say what thou would have us say. Please bless that we may listen to thee in all that we do. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, Enoch. All right, turn on your cameras, everyone. I don't know if you all heard me, but I really want to work on something at the end of class, and I want to have time to do it. So I just thought if we could go over this study guide, which is, did I open it up somewhere? There it is. If we can open up the study guide and just kind of look, I know Grace is first. If we kind of look at it and we just ask, are there places in there that people are not clear about? And then just go over the one part that they're not clear about, and then Grace can talk about it. Would that be all right? I know you all prepared for presentation, but I want to spend just a couple minutes on each one. Is everybody okay with that, or do you have some concerns? Like, give me some body language, people. Okay. or this, whatever. Okay. Sounds good. We got to learn this body language thing. Okay. So on this first one, what is the great apostasy? What caused it? Is there clarity around it all, or does anybody really have some questions? And be honest, if you have some questions and you're afraid to say that, get over it, because I will tell you right now that sometimes I don't feel stable about it, but I do have a lot of good notes on that one, so I know it. So don't feel like we're going to judge you if you are not clear on it, but look over it really quickly and see, is there something that you're just not real clear about? Yes, Elijah, thank you.
Question I had on this one. Yeah, one question I had was the question, what two battle events happened in preparation for the restoration?
Okay.
Because I know on the assignment for this, I guess, readings, we talked a lot about the printing press, but like immediately after that question, they bring in Christopher Columbus and Roger Williams. So I was wondering if those two battle events are talking about Christopher Columbus and Roger Williams, or if they're talking about the printing press and Columbus. I don't remember who it was who wrote that article, but that's what it was talking about.
Grace, do you have any answer for that?
The ones I put down were the printing press and when Christopher Columbus came to America. So
yeah. So in the reading packet on the second page, second paragraph, do you see that? Elijah, do you have that in front of you? This is on the one preparing for the restoration by Arnold Kagar. I hope I someday wish that my throat would clear up. Hiram, Roger Williams. We do talk about him. He's on page, why isn't there a page number? Oh, page 5. He's on page 5 of that same article. Looks like second full paragraph. Do you see that? Okay, Elijah, do Do you have this in front of you?
Yeah.
Page 2. So read that second paragraph, that tiny one, during the Renaissance. Can you read it out loud?
Which page 2? Which article is it?
Yeah, so it's preparing for
And
the
what had to happen?
preparing for the not the registration, but the restoration. Yeah, page 2. That tiny
Uh,
paragraph.
During the Renaissance, or which one?
Yes, that one.
During the Renaissance, the rebirth of learning that blossomed from about AD 350 to 550. Two events took place that were vital in preparation for the final dispensation. Johannes Gutenberg's invention of the printing press in the mid 1400s, and Christopher Columbus's voyage to the Americas in 1492.
Yeah. So without the printing press, without Christopher Columbus's discovery, we probably wouldn't have the New World. Of course, God would probably, if those things weren't done by those two people, there probably would be two other people. But those two things were vital that had to happen, if that makes sense. Does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just a little bit confused because, like, they mentioned two things, and then they mentioned Roger Williams and Christopher Columbus, and I was like, oh, did I miss something?
Yeah. So yeah, Christopher Columbus is the other vital thing. So printing press and Christopher Columbus, but then everything is important, but what's vital is to get the printing press to people, and you have to decide and come to grips with, everybody has to come to grips with why that is so vital. Okay. And you have to kind of come to grips with why it's so vital that a man decided to sail the ocean when there was so much fear around it, to go that far, to go where he was going. There was absolutely incredible fear about it. He did it. There were others that had done it. Who've been with me in the medieval times? I guess it was just last year. We read Brendan's. Yeah. So there's other people that had done it, but not had really talked much about it. This one was the one that really established the New World. And you have to come to grips with it. Like, why is this so vital? Good. Any other questions? Did I help you, Hiram, with Roger Williams? It's on page 5 of this same article. Thumbs up. It's the third paragraph. It says the Puritans subsequently settled in Massachusetts Bay. Do you see that? Perfect. Okay, maybe this is just what we're going to do. Okay, we'll just kind of do it like this. Aaron, you have number 2. Wait a minute. Does anybody else still have questions on number 1? Okay. Aaron, I think, is here. Look at that second one, everyone. Do you have questions around any of these?
I've got one.
Sure.
I kind of answered it in my study guide, but I want to know what you guys think about what is the Renaissance, because when I think about it, I think of a culmination of different things. I can't think of like a set in stone definition for that word. Just wondering what you guys ended up doing for that.
Okay, Aaron, what did you come up with?
I basically put like a new era of discovery, of creativity, just new time, basically.
Awesome. Hiram.
By Elder Gar's definition, if we go to the first page, 4th paragraph down, it says, the Renaissance is the revival of learning. And I think that fits really well with what we've been talking about. and
I
learning
love
about.
that. That's huge. Revival of learning. That's awesome. And what you said, Aaron, too, fantastic. It's a new era. People are wanting to learn again, and they're asking the right questions because of Francis Bacon. Well, no, not from him, but because a lot of people are wanting to ask the right questions now. Awesome. Anybody else have a question? Did that help, Carter? Okay. Any other questions on this number 2?
I actually have one.
Sure.
So in the previous question, I defined apostasy kind of as the priesthood not being on the earth, right? So, and then it says, how does the Renaissance change the nature of the apostasy? And I'm aware that the Renaissance prepared the world for the priesthood to eventually come back on, but I really don't think it changed the nature of apostasy.
So what is a nature of apostasy?
Like what it is, definition, the things, yeah, like that's its nature.
Yeah. But what is the nature of apostasy?
Well, that's what I was kind of confused. Is that different than the definition? Like different than apostasy is the lack of priesthood on the earth today.
Okay, that's good. It's also could be like a rebellion against God. It can also be a lack of knowledge about God. So the nature, yeah, so that's probably not written really well, but now that there was not this lack of knowledge, because people are starting to really, really read, they're beginning to have this ability to read the Bible for themselves. And so then we have these great people like Roger Williams and, well, before him, Martin Luther, where knowledge is actually coming to people now, where before the nature of the apostasy was there was ignorance. There's just, and the fathers had usurped the power of knowledge from the people by keeping it in Latin and only them. Now the people have knowledge. So you're right, it hasn't changed the nature of it. I really am glad that you brought that up. How did the Renaissance change the climate of apostasy? Is that better? Thank you so much. See, I need your help. I need everybody's help because I'm not perfect at this, and this is great. I love it. Okay. Does that help with that question, or do you still want to talk about it? Okay, just give me 1 second, David. Okay. Actually, 2 minutes.
No, that's good, Sister Greenman. That answers.
Okay, good. Thank you. I also did a poor Enoch. I redid some of his too yesterday, realizing that I had written it yucky. So Enoch, that was unfair of me to do that without talking to you, but I was going to tell you today. Let's do it this way. Let's go to, does anybody have any questions about what Aaron had studied? Okay, my cute little grandson needs me. Let's go to Andrew's. Andrew, you kind of direct it and just see if anybody has any questions around it, and then talk about it. If you need to go on, because I'm still not back, go to Kinley's and just kind of follow the pattern that we just did. So go for it, Andrew. I'll be back in just a couple minutes.
All right. Does anyone have any questions or something they want to talk about?
I have a question because I wasn't able to study this very well time because I was pretty busy. But what was Ferrari's, like, what were his accomplishments? What did he really contribute?
So Vasari was considered like the first art historian. In that book we read, The Lives of the Artists, that was like a collection of biographies about the artists of the Renaissance. So that was kind of his thing he was known for.
What do you think were the Medici's contributions to politics? I was a little confused on that question as well. I know they had a lot of popes from the Medici line, but like, did they do anything that wasn't done before by previous popes? Like, what were their contributions?
I also had a hard time with this one. A couple things I found though. They kind of showed that anyone can be anyone, since they came from relatively humble beginnings and eventually controlled much of Italy that hadn't really been done before. They also, in the video, I remember they helped settle disputes between like the common people. I guess that wasn't really politics, but that was one thing I remembered. And they just kind of united Italy under the Pope. So if anyone has any other things they'd like to share. Gracie.
One thing I was thinking about is they showed the need for separation between church and state, because once they controlled the government, they kind of just put their own people in as pope and kind of forced them to do whatever the government wanted. So I think they kind of just showed what could happen if the church is controlled by the government and how we need to avoid that.
Can I interrupt and ask, are you talking about this question that I have highlighted? I guess you're probably not on the template because you've probably copied it and put into, but it's how did the Medici family contribute to the spread of art? Is that, or what was their contributions to politics?
It was
politics.
Did you talk about, this was in the movie or video or whatever you call it. Did you talk about how this strategy of spending money, the amount of money spent would transform into the prestige and patronage? Did you talk about that at all? Like they put all this money into the Duomo and it brought many, many, many people into their city. So the more money they spent on the Duomo, the more money came in and the more prestige and power they had as patrons, the Medicis. So it would bring a lot of people. The more money they spent on Michelangelo to paint and sculpt and give him whatever he needed, the more people would come in, the more money would come in, the more power and prestige the Medicis had. So how do we see that today, this strategy? What can you think of?
Stimulus checks.
Okay. But is there more money? There's more money coming in. I didn't think of it that way. I think we could work with that. Let's just talk about like the Medici, people who have a lot of money, who spend a lot of money, and they get in turn more money and more power and more prestige. Let's look at that aspect of it.
I was thinking of like maybe sports or like even big companies like that Amazon that started from really small and just worked their way up and eventually started as a small investment.
Yeah, so Jeff Bezos has really, really created a huge business that's bringing in a lot of money to him. And it's also serving people. An example, the other day I went into Walmart to get some of this nose spray that I get from, I've got some allergies. And it's $15 at Walmart. And I'm going, oh man, that, again, we're kind of low on funds right now because we got our house carpeted and took more money than we thought. And anyway, so I'm sitting in the aisle at Walmart and I go onto my Amazon app and there it is for $9.97. So I'm getting it for $5 cheaper on Amazon and it comes to my door, right? So not only, so just like the Medicis, they made their city beautiful and culturally beautiful and wonderful for their citizens. So it brought a lot of power and money into the city and it blessed the citizens. The same way, Jeff Bezos is super, super rich, but he's serving millions of people. So when your business serves a lot of people, it brings in a lot more money and it brings also some goodness to each one of us. And just like the Medicis were not perfect, they were corrupted in many ways. So is Jeff Bezos. So a lot of times people who are kind of corrupt and do a lot of things that are not that great or beautiful or virtuous, they're still they're using the strategy to bring up. He's actually making things more affordable for people in the middle class or who are less than middle class. He actually gives them a better price if they do pay that, $100 membership fee. I mean, there's a lot of trade-offs there, but it's also cheaper. And anyway, you're right. Jeff Bezos, sports. It blesses a lot of people's lives, not mine, but a lot of people who like sports. They make a ton of money, but they do, and they bring in a lot of prestige and power because of what they're doing, but they also really bless people's lives who loves to watch sports. So talk about that strategy. It's a good one. I took too much time. Sorry. I just wanted to make sure you knew about that. Should we go on? Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, let's go to Kinley's. Kinley, do you want to go ahead and direct that?
Yeah, sure. I'm open for questions, whatever you guys need.
Question I had, because I have a tendency to write a lot more than I probably should. And so on the question, what does a prince have to do to keep the power? That's kind of like his entire book. So I had a difficult time kind of distilling that. So I don't know. I just appreciate to hear what you wrote about that.
Yeah, so I kind of had a hard time too. I was going through, I was like, yeah, this is the entire book. I did write a bullet point list, but I thought that something that kind of just condensed it and I wrote it down was he has to deceive, right? And slowly he has to give the impression that he's virtuous and kind but have no morals and be ready to throw them away at a moment's notice. So I just think that what the prince needs to do is to have no priority except power. And that's it. And so as long as that's his one priority And like, of course, there are different skills that will help him. But like, if he doesn't care about morals, he doesn't care about other people or his own needs, then he'll be able to keep it, right? If he knows how to do it, then if he just has that as his one priority, I think that's what will keep him in power.
That's awesome. Any other questions, you guys, for Kinley?
Who were the 3 to 5 people you listed that used Machiavelli's principles?
I said Stalin, Elizabeth I, and Henry V. I'm just like the normal rulers and stuff that you hear about.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Did anybody else have others?
I put John Gotti. He was a New York City boss or gangster boss, and he used a lot of Machiavelli's ideals.
Awesome.
I put Kim Jong-un on mine.
Awesome. All right. We ready to go to the next one, or do you have any questions? Anybody else? Okay, go for it, Elijah. Can you go for the next one, Elijah?
Yeah. You guys have any questions on that one?
I have a question kind of on the wording of that question, because some of his methods of discovery weren't different than the past a long time ago, but they're different than the Middle Ages. And so my question is it supposed to be like different than all of time or different than the most common of that time?
I think it's more in contrast to like Middle Age thinking, right? His whole inductive reasoning kind of was like a bit of a refutation to Aristotle and like his method of like deductive reasoning. And so I would say Middle Ages, I guess. I think that we're just focusing on like inductive reasoning, which is like his big thing, which like brought the scientific method. So yeah, I do compare it to the Middle Ages. But there's also the same kind of reasoning in like the Renaissance era that he's also kind of refuting.
So, what is the difference between deduction and induction? Does anybody know that?
Isn't induction possibilities? And then I watched a little bit, I was skipping through the class you guys did for the adults. So I saw the whole graph thing that you guys had up. So that was actually really helpful because I did not really know what induction and deduction were, but deduction is truth or knowledge for the sake of knowing, and then induction is possibilities.
Yes, and I was trying to put my picture. She sent me a picture of that, and I was trying to put it on my the Google Doc. But yeah, there is. Let me see if I can find it. Tresta, I'll be able to talk to you in about an hour, so go find something to do. Okay. What? The wall has a crack. The ceiling has a crack. That's something we can tell Grandpa Dave tonight, okay, when he comes home. But thank you. Okay, so Tresta, oh, I thought she was going to send me that. I thought she sent it to, email probably. Oh my goodness, I can't find it anywhere. Sorry. But yes, so deduction is basically something that we already knew. For instance, Socrates is a man. Men are mortal, therefore Socrates is mortal. So they would do all these syllogisms. Like, we already know that Elijah is a man. We already know that Grace is a woman. We just know that, just we can tell by the fine features on Grace's face and the more masculine features on Elijah's face. We just know those things. We know that this is a plant. This is deductive reasoning, okay? We know that this is an envelope because we've learned what envelopes are. It's a very general way of seeing what deduction is. We've just deduced that this is what it is. And so they focused on that a lot and didn't focus on the possibilities of what an envelope can actually do. Can it actually be sent? Can we think, is there a way that we can, is there a job that somebody can have that can take letters to other people? Of course, they came up with couriers, right? Way, way, way back because of inductive reasoning. Elijah.
The way that I looked at it, just because it can be a little bit convoluted, is just look at like the relationship between your premise and your conclusion, right? For like deductive reasoning, your premises follow your conclusion.
Yeah.
So like, with the examples that Ms. Freeman just gave, I'm like, X subject, like say Elijah is a man because, and you're working from that conclusion, a man is these traits.
Mhm.
Versus inductive reasoning, which is more like the scientific method where you're basing your conclusions off of like your premises, right? So like if you find, if you're gathering research about like whether or not, I'm having a really hard time thinking of an example right now, so I'm not gonna be able to do that right now, but basically
I know what you mean.
forming your conclusions around your observations. So instead of sticking with the model, which is what this entire problem was, instead of sticking with like these Aristotelian models or these biblical models from the Middle Ages, through the scientific method, people could just observe things, like observe astronomy and come to some kind of idea of like a heliocentric universe, right? By just missing some of the conclusions of the past and informing their new conclusions around just their empiric data and observation.
Excellent. Yeah, so here's a plant. I bet many, many, many years ago, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, people didn't have plants in their house. They probably thought, I wonder what the possibility would be to actually dig up this root, put it in a pot and put it in my house. I'm sure it needs some sunlight, needs some water. I know these things that it needs because those are the deductive reasoning. But what are the possibilities of actually bringing a plant inside? Can it live? And I would try it, and I would bring it maybe into a room that has sunlight. And so people would begin to think of different possibilities of actually changing nature, because nature is that plants grow outside. They don't grow inside until people discovered it. And that's a simple, simple, simple example of induction reasoning. Is that helpful? Okay, so that's what Francis Bacon did. He wrote this whole thing about what are the possibilities. Okay, we know what has heat. We know what looks like it has heat, but doesn't. Let's make a list of all these and let's just kind of go forward to see what the different degrees of heat are and what they have. And he began to show this scientific method of the possibilities of things rather than just staying with stuff we already know. Okay, there was inductive reasoning happening all the time, all throughout the ages, but it just wasn't the way that people were discovering things. It was just here and there, but it wasn't an explosion until Francis Bacon brought us to that point. Any other questions about that? This is awesome. Okay, Ryan, do you want to take us to the next one?
Okay, so that's the Shakespeare one. Are there any questions on this?
give him some body language. Like if he sees everybody's got that, then that means we can go on. If you've got a question, then say it. There you go, Hiram.
Okay, so I just wanted to know what you put as the compromise between mercy and justice, like where they meet in the middle, you know? And I read your thesis, or yeah, your thesis or your argumentative paper essay, and you said that you can't have too much justice and you can't have too much mercy. So what is that compromise where they meet in the middle?
Yeah, so you read my paper, and in that, I kind of say that that balance is if you have as much mercy as you can possibly have while still having justice, you're doing the right thing. If you go, because I would make it so you don't go too far with justice. There's just so much you want to do with that. Mercy, you might as well give as much as you possibly can, because there's basically an unlimited amount of that to give. So that's kind of the balance.
I'm going to interrupt. Jolene texted me saying that she was the one that texted me this picture yesterday when I asked for it. And I don't know how to upload it, but I'm trying to upload it in Google Docs. So look for it if you can find it. I'll try and see if I can get it in there somehow. Okay, let's go to the next. Does anybody else have any questions on that one? Okay. I'm going to have to email it to you all. So I'll just email it to you as soon as I can get a moment. Okay, where are we now?
We're on mine, but I never realized that you changed them, so I'm still on the old ones. So I'm not
I
sure if
know.
I'll be able to answer them perfectly.
I know. Don't worry about it. Use the old ones. I just kind of, I think I had asked what his mathematical argument, but I changed it to line of logic to kind of help clarify. So does anybody know what that is? His mathematical line of logic, his argument? Enid, go ahead.
I think his argument was the one about infinity. Infinity, there are things that are infinite. They're always there. You can cut them in half, add to them, and it doesn't change the fact that they're infinity. We may not understand why they're infinite. We may not understand how they're infinite. That does not mean they do not exist, and therefore God is infinite. And so you can't cut him in half or add to him because he is the same, and he is no more or no less than infinity.
Good. Anybody want to add to that?
So I highly recommend, sorry, Andrew, I just hand up. I highly recommend listening to the adults class because you guys had a really good discussion on that. But I just think it was really interesting. You said like math was the language of that time. And it just really puts into perspective, like he wasn't trying to, bring up the infinity thing for the people who already believed. He was trying to prove it to the people who wanted something tangible. And he was saying, well, this math is like it's never changing, and infinity is math, and God is true and exact. And so I just think it's really, really cool.
So did you listen to the one we had yesterday? The adults, that's great. All of you are welcome to listen to the adult class that we have. It's pretty amazing, just like our class too. But we do talk about different things. It is interesting how as we change, as we change by having more experience in life, the discussions change a little. Good. Let's go to Carter's, unless somebody has something else on Pascal.
I just have one quick question about what Enoch said.
Okay.
So how I understood Pascal was it was less about like the existence of God and more about the belief in him. Am I completely wrong? Because it seemed like when you were talking about this mathematical argument, it sounded more like existence versus like payoff in believing in him.
I think that was a big part of it. I just think the mathematical logic that he used was about this infinity proving that he exists. But I think you're right. He did talk a lot about believing that he exists and there's proof that he exists. But to know who he is requires belief.
Yeah. So I changed the question in, is he proving that God exists or some other thing? That was just, I kind of changed on that. It'll be a little different on the test, but similar to that question. Because he really wasn't proving that he exists. You can't really prove it, just like you can't really prove what the number is for infinity. But we know it's there, and people, the mathematicians know it's there, that there's infinity. And as soon as you know what that number is, it's not infinity anymore, right? But because he can show that even in math, we don't know what infinity is, then in theology, we can't prove that God's there. But let's talk about, like Elijah saying, let's now talk about this probability of whether you should believe in him or not. What's going to happen if you do believe in him, and the benefits you get for that, and what's going to happen if you don't believe in him and he does exist. And let's look at all of these possibilities. So his math method was basically probability, wasn't it? Yeah. So you may want to talk about that a little bit too. Good questions. Give me body language. Are you ready to go on? Oh, Andrew's got a question.
I had some trouble with the question about the social climate of the time.
Okay.
What were your thoughts on that?
So I think it was just him talking about what is the social climate, as in what is going on. And he lived around the same time as Francis Bacon and stuff, where they're starting to say they question everything. They need proof for something to be true. And that's what I said was the social climate, because that's what was being accepted as the norm. And that's why he was talking to them. Like Naomi just said, that he wasn't trying to convince those who already believe. He's trying to convince those who were starting to doubt that there was a God.
Doubt, those who are doubting that there's a God, because of all those questions, right, going on. So another word for that is skeptic. There's a lot of skeptics at the time, which makes sense. For heaven's sakes, we just have the Catholic Church that's like usurped all the power of the people over knowledge of God and changed his nature throughout these 1,500 years. And there's been this tyranny of the church, in a sense. We look at the Medicis and how they were in line with the Pope, and there's just a lot of corruption in the church of the time. The people are skeptic. They're skeptical. Like, really? I don't think church is all it's cracked up to be. And they were right. It wasn't. So there's a lot of skeptical ideas going on. A lot of questions, a lot of, I don't even know if there is a God. Because if there is a God, why would he have done this with all this church stuff? Catholic Church stuff. Does that help, Andrew?
Yeah, that makes more sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I actually have a question, Sister Greenman. So we're talking about like Pascal, and he has like his wager, and this is what he believes, and we're talking about it in like terms of trains of logic and numbers. When we say logic, what do we mean? Are we saying something that is correct? Like something Like, for something to be logic, does it have to be correct? And like, if we could disprove Pascal's wager, would it no longer be logic?
So logic's really just this idea of reasoning. It can be philosophy, it can be false logic, it can be true logic. It could be valid, it can be invalid. So if you ever get into debate, I think you've heard of validity. Oh, Elijah is putting stuff in there. Logic just the process of reasoning. That's all it means.
Okay, and then like Pascal says, obviously he's a man of religion and he believes in Catholicism, but do you think that he actually believed that you can just choose whatever you believe? Like if you're like, oh, like I choose to believe that, I'm now going to have complete faith in it.
I don't know.
Okay.
I do know though that he's trying to get people to ask to see probability though. I do know that he is one of the fathers of probability. I don't know if he believed fully in Catholicism as much as he believed in God.
Okay.
I think Catholicism was a real hard thing for a lot of people back then, right then, because it was such a corrupted power at the time and people knew it. So so I don't know the answer to that specific question. I just know that he's trying to show logic in how you can reason through, well, okay, you can go your whole life without believing in God, but what might be the consequence?
Right, but like, do you think that do you think he knows, like God will know if your testimony is based on probability?
Oh, so we're now talking theology right now. You're asking like
that's not, he doesn't think that that's actually going to save you, right? Or is
I don't think he's talking about saving. I think he's just showing a line of reasoning.
Okay.
Yeah, and we know through scriptures the Lord is going to know the person in their heart of their commitment to him, right? Aaron.
Okay, so I basically think that he's just saying like, just take the first step, because eventually your testimony will build up and you'll have like a true testimony of God and not just based on logic.
Thank you, C.S. Lewis. He writes just like that. You just maybe think of him. He writes an essay, I think, called Pretend. I don't think it's called that, but in it, he talks about, if you don't believe in God, let's just go through this thought process of pretending. And the more you pretend and the more you live the way God would want you to live, the more you're going to feel his love and feel it. So yeah, good one, Aaron. I love it. Okay, we are spending a lot of time on this. I want everybody to look from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I added a 13th one. So we're going to talk at that at the end. So if you look at 8 through 12 right now and just take a few minutes and read over any of these, read over all of them and see if there's some things that just glare out at you if you have some questions on them. Gracias. Did you hear all that motor running? Did anybody hear it?
I think one thing that, yeah, it's kind of loud.
Sorry.
One thing that I kind of would like to go a little bit more into is that question, Hiram's question, because I know that we've already done all the reading and most of these questions are really the same. that we've had on our study docs or our assignments.
Mhm.
And so this quote, we haven't really gone over at all. I'd just be curious what I'm kind of put under that.
Okay. What did you come up
I'm
with,
already
Hiram?
unmuted. Look at that.
Yay!
Let's see, let me get to it. Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna go tell him to move to a different room. I'll be right back, but you keep working, keep talking.
Okay, I'll just read the quote out loud, and then share my thoughts. Reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. So, I was thinking about reading, and there really is this satisfaction that comes with gaining your own knowledge and working for the knowledge, especially through books and pondering and thinking, and it's just that process of learning through literature. And Full really describes that feeling well, because books fill you with insight and understanding, and a lot of interdisciplinary thoughts that you can tie into other areas of your education. And you know that quote Sister Greenman shared a few weeks ago, the one about Mark Twain, and in it he says that, well, he's getting this telegraph from a boss or someone he writes for, and the boss asks him to write this 5-minute speech, and Mark Twain replies and says that he can write
30 pages in 2 days.
Yeah, 30 pages in 2 days, or 2 weeks for a 5-minute, or like a page. And it really kind of outlines how hard it is to be succinct and exact in writing, and also in conference, because I really like this quote because it applies to conference and also in writing, because we can ramble on with speech forever and not get to our point when we aren't prepared, and we don't really condense our ideas. And it's the same thing with literature. So those were my takeaways from the quote.
Yeah, it's very easy to write a lot of words in an essay, but to really become exact and concise and succinct, you have to work really, really hard to use those words that are vivid, that are powerful, that can say 2 sentences in 1 word, if that makes sense. Get rid of all the filler words, and yeah.
I have a couple thoughts on this quote. One idea that I was introduced to is about consumption. And I was reading, I don't remember where, but they were talking about how reading itself is consumption, and you're consuming, you are the consumer. And that was like really hit me, because I was like, the things that people get addicted to, things that like usually we associate with laziness, are things that, or not laziness, but like they're just things that we consume. And what's really important here is I think that there are different types of reading. And that's what Sister Greenman has taught us in this class, is when I'm sitting there and marking the book, and I'm not just letting the words go through, I'm reading entertainment, but I'm like searching for principles and looking for questions and really sitting there and thinking through the reading. I think that that's what it means when it says that's what makes a full man. It's like she talked about the writing and the conference, a ready man. If we have different ideas from different people and we're searching and growing through that, I think that that's what they means by readiness. So anyways, I think that when it says reading and conference and writing, that those can all be very passive things, and we can not center ourselves on important stuff. But I think that what he's talking there is something very specific.
So you're talking about the commitment to them all and the degree of what you're reading and talking about and writing about. There's different degrees of difficulty or depth, right? Yeah, I think you're right. I love that. Okay. Okay, for all the rest of you, for all of you, if you have any other questions that you are just not sure about, just text me or email me and say, I don't really understand this. Can you talk to me about it? And I can meet with you. And then when you're ready, you can take the exam. I did have the exam already last week when I worked with Jolene on it, but I want to change a couple of things on it and add one more question, which is going to be similar to this number 13 that I have. Let me share my screen. I put this down as I was talking to the adults yesterday. I had this distinct feeling we needed to do this. I may not even be done with this question, but it was, there was the I'm still recognizing it. Think of a powerful theme you liked this year. Write a knowledge question and a meaning question around that theme. Answer them, and then ask a principal question. Mold your thoughts until you come up with a principle. You only need those first two, the knowledge and the meaning, and then you start to really mold your thoughts until you come up to a principle, which is a cause and effect statement. Okay. Then I wanted you to then look for evidences. Sorry, busy day yesterday. I had my whole written final that took me pretty much all afternoon, like 6 hours. And then I have a paper that's due soon for my college class, so I didn't finish this yesterday. So then you're going to look for evidences of your principle in other works. That can include personal story. It can include books, movie, God's creations. It can include anything. So that's what an interdisciplinary is. And then what, then how, okay, then what is an application question? And what could you do to implement this principle in your life? Okay, so this is just going to be an exercise on asking the 5 types of questions and getting a principle. So you have access to that to think about and to practice before you even take the test, okay? But I wanted to practice it here in class, and we have a half an hour to do it. So I'm going to do it right here. We're going to all come together. I'm going to take off. I'll make it smaller now. Okay, so let's think of a theme. What do you think? What theme can you think of? Go ahead, Carter.
We talked a lot about fate or free will and justice and mercy.
Ooh, okay, which one do you want to talk about?
I think it'd be interesting to talk about either one of them.
Okay. So can we just narrow it down to one thing, like free will? Okay. What is another word for that we use all the time?
Agency.
Yeah, agency. Okay. So what is a question that we can ask about it? A knowledge question. Can be as simple as possible.
Is agency.
Thank you, Elijah. I know it's hard to answer like the most obvious things, but sometimes we have to get to that point. So thank you for asking. What is agency? Let's answer it.
The ability to choose for yourself.
Okay, is there anything to add to that? Is there responsibility that's included in this? Some of you are going, yeah, some of you are kind of, I don't know. Is there responsibility in agency?
Yes.
Yeah, there's
Yes?
responsibility for your consequences of your choices.
Okay, responsibility. Does anybody ever have a hard time with that word? Responsibility, is that how you spell it? Yeah. For your choices. Yeah. Okay. So
I also think there's responsibility to keep your agency, because there's choices you can make that will take it away, like getting addictions to alcohol and stuff.
ooh. So keep it. Don't and when I was young, I wanted someone to wake me up when I was a teenager because I had a hard time waking up at one point. You probably are not like me. You probably can do it. But was there a time in your life where you had to have that, where you had to take that agency and be responsible for it, to choose for yourself to wake up? Does anybody have an experience like that? Or have you all been perfect and you can get up whenever you need and you can wake up to an alarm? Wow. Thumbs up or thumbs down? What? Which? Okay, some of you have gone through that. Okay, good. I'm not alone. I don't have to have that. I don't have that problem anymore. That's kind of what I think of when Enoch says, keep your agency. I really wanted someone else to be responsible for me to get up, because I was sleeping in through my alarm and missing work or something. I finally figured it out when I took the agency back and it was mine. Isn't that interesting? I like that you said keep your agency. Okay, so we've got this. We've got what agency is. We have to have responsibility for it. We have to keep it. It is an ability. Okay, now, what's a meaning question around agency? Okay, what I'm going to do you know what I'm noticing? I'm noticing everybody's kind of moving around. So we're going to divide up into groups. And I want everybody to come up with, in your group, I want you to come up with a meaning question. And then we'll come back in about 3 to 5 minutes. I'll just call you back. Assign automatically 2 rooms, create, bam, go for it. Jolene, you can stay here. Naomi, wait, guys, stay here. I'm going to move you to room 2 just because there's too many people in the other one. Okay, go for it. Hello, Naomi, and there they went. Okay, let me just, hold on. How come I can't?
I think we got kicked out of the other room.
What's that?
I think we got kicked out of the other room. It like put us in for a second and then like it went back out.
Oh, okay. Can you go back to the other room?
I don't think so. I think you have to put me in there.
Wait, press breakout rooms real quick. Right there. Huh.
Huh.
We were originally
Maybe.
assigned to breakout room two,
Wait,
one,
maybe if I
but that
push this
says
button.
two.
Okay, so I did change you because I noticed that there were not enough people there. Oh, they went. Okay. Let me pause this, start. Yeah, same with spouse. That's so true. Oh my goodness. And friends, and we do a lot of enabling. That's so, so true. Hey. Yay. Okay. We're almost here. This is awesome. I think we're all back now. So what did you come up with? What did group one come up with? What's your question, meeting question?
Well, we talked about, we came up with a lot of questions, but I think one of what we kind of had more of an emphasis on are like, what are the dangers or costs of agency?
Awesome. Good. What about group two?
So we had a little bit harder time coming up with a quantity of questions, but slowly refined. Probably the main one we talked about is why is agency important? Just a simple one. And then we also talked about, is it unjust that our agency affects others?
Is it unjust that agency affects others? Good. Can I just add, how does agency? How does our agency, yeah, affect others? All of these are good. Did you have some more group one?
Yeah, I put them in the chat box. I'm not sure if you have them. I can just read them off. Why is agency necessary? What effect would fate have on the plan of salvation? Or like, what does agency have on the plan of salvation? What effect does that have?
Wow.
Where is agency from? How do we lose it?
That's awesome. No, none of them came up in the chat. So if you could copy and paste those again, that'd be good. So let's just kind of choose one. Everybody kind of look at this. Look at 1 through, let's just keep the 4 there. And we're just gonna, thanks Elijah, we'll have those there just for our own interest in that. But if you look at 1 through 4, which one do you think would be fun to work on as a group? So read it for 30 seconds and then I will do a little vote.
Where are you writing the questions, Sister Greenman?
Oh, sorry.
It's all in that study guide. It's
Yeah, it's just right under 13 in the study guide. So sorry about that.
Template, the template.
The template. Mhm.
Okay.
So sorry.
honestly, a lot of these questions are really similar. Like 1, 3, and 4 are all basically the same. They're just different versions of the same question. So you can just kind of consolidate them.
Yeah, there's nuances, right? Okay, so who would like number 1? Thumbs up. Okay, I see 2 people, yes. What about number 2? Maybe there was 3 on number 1. Okay, number 3. 2 people on that one. Number 4. Okay, so it's between 1 and 3. Now, put your thumbs up really high so I can see them, but who would like number 1? 1, 2 people. Who wouldn't like number 3? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're going to do number 3. Is it unjust that agency affects others? Now this, we got to remember that this is a yes or no question. So this, we've kind of got to change it in a way so that we can go into a discussion. Maybe why is it unjust that agency, I don't know. I don't know if that'll get us to it. This is why I think number 4 would be best on that one, because it's not. Is it truly unjust that agency affects others?
Well, that's the question, right?
Yeah, but where is it going to get us to? Because what we're doing is we are arguing against what the nature of agency does affect others. That's just the nature of it. And that's why it causes every conflict in the whole world. That's why it caused the conflict in the war in heaven. It's just the nature of it. So that's why I think, I don't know if we're going to get anywhere with it. Does that make sense? Does it?
We just change the question and be like, how is it just that agency affects others? I mean, that's a small modification, but if you just kind of reset the argument, you can probably go into more.
Yeah, thank you. That helps. Because then we already know, established that the first principle of agency, because agency is a first principle, it is just, and it is just that it will affect others. That's just the way it is. And that's kind of why God wants us to have agency. It's going to affect others. Okay, so let's do that one. How would you answer that?
Which one are we talking about? Did we change questions?
Yeah, we actually made it so that we are recognizing the nature of agency in it.
Okay.
And so how is it just that agency affects others? I'll put it in the chat box here. But I am on the first semester Renaissance study guide template.
I think it's beneficial to share your screen, so everyone's kind of on the same page. You don't have to do others.
Yes, I'd be happy to share the screen. Okay, so we're going to go here. How is it just that agency affects others? Let's kind of just brainstorm out there. I'll do the first one. God established it. I don't want it to be underlined. Well, let's just say it is a first principle. Agency is a first principle, and that's the nature of it. Anything else?
I'm thinking like responsibility and like accountability. So if agency kind of has like effects, that's why you need like responsibility and accountability with it.
That's awesome. I love how you saw that. Okay. That might even answer the question of why is it just that agency affects others? Good thoughts. This is really good. What else? Do you think we have enough here now that we could form a principle around these things? Agency is a first principle, and that's the nature of it. It affects others, and that's why we have to have responsibility and accountability with it.
I'm a little confused. How are we defining effects? As in influences others, or like how it actually, harms? Like which definition, or is it all of the above? Positive and negative, every influence.
Yeah, so this is the verb, whereas these are the nouns. It has an effect. So yeah, so it influences, it harms, it helps, it every way. Effect is a really broad word, but I think it works here because the choice for me to bring my grandson here to spend time with him, knowing that I still had classes that I had to teach, is really affecting him right now. He's really having a hard time being bored right now, but he's finding cupboards to open and shut and a massager to bang on the floor. And it's really affecting me too. So do you see what I'm saying? There's just lots of, any of our decisions affects. Yeah, and influence is amoral, right? It could be a good or a bad influence. I love it. Good. So does that help, Naomi? But we could come up with a principle, I think, knowing all this. So now we've got this clay, okay? This is our principle that is just a ball of clay, and we're going to now use brainstorming to make it into a beautiful pot. So what is the principle? Here's a simple question that is a principle question. Let's just start to mold this clay with lots of different brainstorming. What could we come up with from these things here? Do you want a color? No? Okay. So here's an example. We can come up with the nature of, okay, we may be writing a first principle here. The nature of agency is what? What do you think? Remember, this is just brainstorming. There's not right or wrong answer. We're just going to come up with something. Don't be fearful.
I just wrote my first attempt at a principle in the chat.
Oh,
Responsibility is necessary if one seeks to use their agency for good. It's kind of rough, but it's just something to put together.
cool. Let's do it. Let's put it in. Responsibility is necessary if one seeks to use their agency for good. I love it. This to me is actually a principle. What I was starting to write was a first principle. The nature of agency is to choose with responsibility. Maybe that is a responsibility. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have some ideas? Let's choose this one. I love it. So I'm going to bold it. There's our principle. Okay. Now, actually that bolding doesn't work. So I'll just do this. So responsibility is necessary if one seeks to use their agency for good. Now, where have we seen this principle in books or movies? Ooh, that's good, Carter, too. Okay, so if we're just, we already started with this one, so let's continue with this one. Where have we seen this principle number 2 in books or movies? All right, everybody but Elijah. Because Elijah has stuff to say, but I want everyone else to have a chance. What? Go ahead.
Kind of what Kinley was talking about earlier when she was talking about the prince. He was avoiding responsibility, and he was not, his intention was not to use his agency for good. It was to accumulate power. And so he was avoiding responsibility for the people and for his own actions and his own morality.
Excellent. Good. Any others? This is good.
I was thinking just like Dr. Faustus, like he had good intentions, like he wanted to like know more and basically further knowledge, but in the end he had to take responsibility, basically, like his actions caught up to him in the end.
Should we say his desire to? Yeah. He wasn't able to use his agency for good because he didn't have the responsibility. That is so good. What about movies? Has anybody seen any movies where you've seen this? You've seen somebody that was responsible or that broke it, that wasn't responsible, and they couldn't use their agency for good. Look, you can do this.
Okay, another one. The prodigal,
What?
so the prodigal son, like he asked to get all his money before like his father died, and then he spent it all, then came back and was forgiven, and
He was ready to be responsible, right?
Yeah, you can see the contrast too with his brother who was responsible for his money and did stay and probably had a lot less trouble.
Yeah, of course his brother then just gets mad. Gracie.
I was thinking this is not a movie, but in Frankenstein, he creates this monster, which could have been an interesting benefit to science of like the nature of humans, but instead he was so fearful he just ran away and didn't accept that responsibility of being the creator of this monster, that it ended up destroying, like killing a lot of his family, and it like because he didn't take responsibility, he had to accept the consequences.
Yeah, I love it. This is amazing. This is interdisciplinary questions are my favorite. Okay, we are out of time, but do you see how you can do this? So what you're going to do is you're going to take a theme And of course, you're not going to be able to do this one. You could do this one if you want, but it's got to be, it should be an kind of a, this is an exercise for you to go ahead and think through the theme and then the questions around it, find a principle, and then look for evidences in it of it, and then come up with an application of how you're going to live that principle. If anyone needs to understand a little bit more about anything, remember to contact me. Give me maybe a half an hour after class, and then I will have the questions ready and I'll open up the test between now and Thursday night at midnight, my time. So that means you, Naomi, and Elijah, I think you're the only ones that are in the central time zone. That means 11 o'clock by Thursday night needs to be done. Plan on anywhere between 90 minutes and 3 hours. Also, there is a limit on the characters that you're going to use, the words. So you'll have to be concise and exact. You'll have to learn to pull out the filler words and just put in, you know, the most concise things that you can think of. Okay. Any questions? If I can do it, and mine was 6 hours long, you can do this, right? My head hurts from all that I did yesterday. I just want to scream. But that's not the point. The point is to really be able to use the knowledge that you've gained this semester and really feel good about it. So, okay. Let me know if you have any questions. Oh, Elijah. Yes.
What is the character limit on the questions? What's the character limit?
Oh, the character limit. I'd have to go back and look at it, but I think it's going to be anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500, which is probably about, I put it at 3,000 in the past, and I think it's going to be around 1,500. So that's probably around 100 to 300 words. So there's still, you know, a good couple paragraphs you can put in. So. Okay, good question. Any other questions? All right. We'll go ahead and stop recording.